My dear students, we are studying this particular subject on pharma marketing management, opted as an elective for B.Pharm final year students of APJ Abdul Kalam Technical University, and I am Dr. Avijit Majumdar, working as a professor and head of, the director of Noida Institute of Engineering and Technology Pharmacy Institute, Greater Noida. Now, in the class today, we will mainly discuss about a very important aspects, particularly the students who are opting for marketing, that is consumer behavior and industrial behavior analysis. That is analysis of the consumer behavior or in fact and the industrial behavior. Now, before we go into the analysis of the consumer behavior, the first thing what we need to understand is what basically we mean by the term consumer behavior. What is the meaning of the term consumer behavior? What is the meaning of the term consumer, my dear students? Consumer means one who consumes, one who uses. One who uses your product, one who consumes your product, they are called consumers, and the behavior of the consumers is what we are calling as consumers' behaviors. A very crude way to define. In fact, consumer behavior is nothing but a study of when, why, how, where people do and people do not buy your product. That is, answer to these questions, answers to these questions: when do they buy your product, why will they buy your product, how will they buy your product, from where they will buy your product, why they do not buy your product, they are all coming under consumer behavior. They are all coming under consumer behavior. It is basically a process to understand. Just a few minutes back I was telling, no, behavior of consumers. So, by behavior you mean you have to understand the psychology of the consumers, what the consumers are thinking at the back of their mind. It is basically a process to understand the psychology of the buyers in the process of decision making, either singly or in groups. Very important. Whenever a consumer takes a decision, remember, in some situation they take a decision alone, but some decisions related to the products, they are also taken in groups. They discuss with their family members, they discuss with their friends who are called the peer groups. They try to imitate someone whom they think to be their model, whom they try to imitate. It may be a leader, it may be an artist, it may be any damn individual whom they try to imitate. So, decisions regarding the purchase of a product, decision about which product to go for, sometimes comes singly, That is, he alone takes a decision, and sometimes he is taking a decision in discussion with a group. So, consumer behavior is a process to understand the want of the people, and the main focus is customer satisfaction. The main focus is customer satisfaction. Why? Because customers are the only person for whom business actually exists. If there is no customer, there is no business. So, automatically the firm itself will not exist. So, unless the customers are satisfied, there is no question of the business to exist, company to remain. Consumers, they are the purchaser of goods and service for immediate use or consumers or consumption. Buyers, one who buys, he is the person who purchases goods either for resale or for use in production or for the use of somebody else whom we are telling to be as the buyer. We are telling to be as a buyer for those people who are purchasing a product for the use for somebody else. Consumers, he is the one who purchases goods for his own use as well as for the use of other people. And lastly is the industrial buyer. They are basically government organization or private sector. That is, they are basically industries. Even if they are industries, so also they are customers, also they are consumers. So, we need to study an in-depth of how they behave. The consumers, the customers, the institutional buyer, and so on. What is the nature of the consumer's behavior? The nature of the consumer behavior suggests that it is a mental and emotional process as well as physical activities people engage themselves in when they select, purchase, use and dispose of products or service to satisfy their wants and desires. That is, three important factors are there. Their mental, emotional process and physical activities which are people engage themselves in whenever they are using a product, selecting a product for purchase, and they are mainly done to satisfy the need and wants they have. Now, let us come on to what is called nature of consumer behavior and decision making. The factors are important to understand the consumer market and consumer behavior. What are the factors which are very important, which we need to understand whenever we are studying the market and the behavior of the consumer thereof? First of all, the size of the consumer market, number one. Number two, changes in the consumer's shopping habits and purchasing decisions. Emphasis on the consumer oriented marketing, and finally the design of an effective marketing strategy to have the complete success of the marketing and satisfaction for the consumers. So, we need to consider number 1, what is the size of the consumer market, what are the basic changes which takes place in the consumer shopping habits and purchasing decision, that is what are the factors which a consumer considers whenever he is taking a decision about purchasing. Emphasize mainly on the consumer oriented marketing, and the marketing strategy should be so defined that it should have the complete satisfaction of the customers, and then only you will have the maximum market share. Characteristics of consumer behavior. It is a process when the consumer decides what to buy, when to buy, where to buy, how much to buy. These are the basic fundamental characteristics of the consumer behavior. It comprises both mental, emotional, physical activities. It is very difficult to understand, the psychology of the buyers. Human psychology, very, very difficult. In fact, an entire subject is there called human psychology. So, the consumer behavior is very complex and dynamic in nature. In fact, the nature changes from one customer to the other. If there are 5 members in a family, they will have 5 different attitudes, 5 different tastes, 5 different needs. Individual buyer behavior is influenced by various internal factors like need, want, attitude, and external factors like social group, culture, status, environmental factors, and so on. Now, these are the various factors which governs the decision of an individual whether to buy your product. If the answer is yes, then when to buy your product, why to buy your product, from where to buy your product, how much amount they will decide to buy, everything, how much price they will pay to buy, everything depends on these factors. Question is, why we are so much interested to know about the consumer behavior? It is very much required. I have told you in the beginning of the class that it is very much required because it helps you to make a better strategy for profit maximization. It is very much important to know the consumer health, hygiene, and fitness. The study of consumer behavior is very important to know about the taste and preference of the consumers. A study of consumer behavior is tremendous important whenever you are taking a pricing decision, whenever you are fixing a price. You should know how much your customers are in a position to pay. A study of consumer behavior also helps you to have an idea, also helps you to know the buying decision and how the consumer makes consumption. Because if you are having idea about how the consumer makes consumption, this will lead to have an idea about his second repurchase. So, what we are calling as frequency of purchase. So, you should have an idea about the buying decisions, frequency of purchase. If you have an overall idea about all these parameters, all these factors, my students, this will not only help you to have a preferential advantages over the competitors, but will also help you to avoid the future market failures. If you can feel the pulse of the customer, if you are in a position to feel the pulse of the buyers, you will be in a position to have an idea about the trend change, what the customers are asking for, what is the technological change that is coming up in the near future. If you know the financial capacity of the customer, you will be in a position to have an idea about the overall economy of your buyers. So, if you recollect what we studied earlier in marketing environment, particularly the macro factor we have discussed about technology and economic factors. So, we have to have a complete idea about the consumer behavior. Now, you have to understand the first of all the problem recognition or the recognition of the unsatisfied need. Once you are identifying the need, then automatically you have to develop the alternatives and the information search. You have to generate as much as alternatives are available, which may be available to the customers at a particular point of time. Then you have to evaluate all these alternatives. You need to evaluate all these alternatives, and the alternatives which will be suiting the best for the customers, they will go for purchase of the particular product. They will go for the purchase of your product. But your work does not stop there. Your work does not stop here. After purchase, you need to provide what we are calling as after sale service. Let us see what are the growing consumer market. Number one, new retail lineups. It is classified into three categories. Number one, price centric. Two, lifestyle. Three, occasion centric. Occasion centric means you are purchasing traditional dresses when festivals are coming up, isn't it? So, that is what we are calling as occasion centric. Apart from them, we are having outdoor living market, we are having consumer electronics, we are having enhanced experience in the business. We are also having the anti-aging products and services. Health has now become a national hobby. Majority of the people are aware of the health. You have seen that various yoga camps are organized. People in the morning and evening, they are going for morning and evening walks. They are going for the gymnasiums. So that has become another segment which is to come up for the consumers, the customers. High-end sports apparel and equipments, safe packaging, pure contents and green concerns. These are, some of the growing consumer markets. Please remember that customers market is not stagnant. It is an ups and downs. Sometimes some product is it's sort of a ripple which takes place. Sometimes the market will be high, sometimes it will be down. And it is you who have to float your boat accordingly. Now, what are the factors which influences the consumer behavior? Basically, there are 6 factors. 1 psychological, 2 social, 3 cultural, 4 personal, 5 economic, 6 environmental factors. These are the 6 factors which influences the consumer behavior. First is the psychological factors. Number 1, which is divided into 4 further subdivisions. Consumer needs and motivation. Second is perception, learning, beliefs and attitudes. All these are coming under psychological factors. Next is the social factors. The reference group, as I have told you earlier, that some people, many of you who are sitting here, you have some personality in your mind whom you try to follow, whom you try to imitate. So that is we are calling as a mentor or a reference individual. It may be in the form of a group. Family members is another important social factor which we need to consider. Next is the cultural factors. Culture, subculture, social class. A very important factors, personal factors. Personal factors, basically we mainly include the age, whether he is a young individual of around 20 to 25 years of age, his choice will be something different. Choice of a senior people of around aged 50, 55, his choice will be different. So, what I basically mean to say is, as the age changes, the choice of the consumer gradually changes. The next factor is the stages in life cycle, in which particular stage he or she belongs to. Next is the occupation, very important, because the occupation will govern how much financial capacity, how much financial strength, how much economic strength he is having. Next is the lifestyle, what sort of a lifestyle he or she is leading, what sort of a lifestyle his friends are leading, what personality he has. All these are coming under the heading of personal factors for consumer behaviors. As far as the fifth factor or the economic factor is concerned, whenever you are purchasing any item, you are paying a price. And whenever you are paying a price, that depends on your surplus income or your savings. The personal income, the family income, your expected income in the near future, because that will tell you whether you are in a position to give an EMI for a product. You will find that a large number of costly items are purchased on the basis of EMI, expected monthly income. What is your savings? What is your liquidity position? And what is your consumer credit? All these are coming under economic factors. Environmental factors include the political situation, the legal factor, the technological advancement, and the ethical consideration. Type of consumer behavior buying. Whenever we are buying, some are routine purchase, some we have to think lot of survey, homework has to be done before we are taking a decision. So, the buying behavior basically are of 4 kinds. Routine response, where low involvement is required, frequently low cost items are purchased, we take very little time to take a decision. Say for example, what food we will eat in lunch, what food we will eat in breakfast, it takes only a fraction of a minute to take a decision. Next is limited decision making, where the buying takes place occasionally. When one obtains information about the unfamiliar brands in a familiar product category, say for example, which cloth you will want to purchase, which formal t-shirt you will want to buy, here you take a much more time as compared to that of your routine purchase. Next is extensive decision making. The term extensive. In this extensive decision making, high involvement is there. We are taking a lot of time, because the amount of money which we will be investing is large. That is, the amount of money, the price of the item is very high, expensive one. So, a high degree of economic performance and psychological risk are there. Let us discuss them. Say for example, you are wanting to purchase your house. So, you have to go from one society to the other, you have to look for the facilities which are there, the cost, the square feet area, what amenities they are providing, and so on. If you want to purchase a car, you have to see whether it is automatic, semi-automatic, gear 1, whether it is running on fuel, or it is running on CNG, or it is running on electrical one. That is, what I mean to say is, more is the cost involved, automatically more is the extensive nature of the survey to be done. In impulsive buying, the term impulsive means no conscious planning. In high and low involvement decision, the level of importance or interest generated in the product, consumer information, the cognitive process by which the consumers interpret and integrate the information with the environment. In high involvement decision, characterized by high level of importance through the information processing and substantial differences between alternative. Low involvement decisions occurs when relatively little personal interest, relevance or importance associated with the purchase is there. How to take a consumer decision? First of all, you have to select your audience. Second, identify the key benefits to each group. Allocate quantitative data. You have to generate as much data as possible. Compare your qualitative and quantitative data. Apply your analysis to the campaign, and finally take a decision. These are the various steps which we conduct for consumer behavior. Now, as far as the various types of consumer choices are there, they are choices in terms of product, brand, shopping area, shopping style, the store and non-store products. Factors affecting industrial bias are the demand. It directly depends on the demand company expect in future. Price is another important factor, economy, technological changes. These are some of the very important factors which affect the industrial buying behavior. Steps for industrial buying behavior: recognition of a need, determine the product specification. After product specification are decided, you have to select the supplier, ask for the proposals to come up, then you have to negotiate with the supplier, and finally you have to decide to whom you will give the order. And after the order is given, after the purchase is given, the supplier supplies the product. Now you have to match with the requirement which is there and the item which has been provided to you, whether it is up to the mark, whether it is satisfying all the parameters or not, and which we are calling as the post purchase evaluation, and finally rating of supplier. And if the suppliers are getting a very good rating, automatically you will take for the next lot. With this, we are coming to the end of the class today. Thank you very much for your ear.